This is the story of the Leadership Vanguard kickoff session at the Tate Britain in London. It explores what happens when you combine a retired general, a Buddhist monk, and 17 eager catalysts to figure out where the leaders of tomorrow are and what we must ask of them. It started at the Global Projects Exchange at the Law Society in London, where we heard speeches by Oswald Bjelland, John Knight, and Glenn Marino, took part in plenary debates and workshops on topics such as policy, climate change, and digital reimagining, as well as small group mentoring sessions with inspirational leaders like Per Heggenes, Bawa Jain, Lord Oxborough, and Henrik Motsen to discuss their motivations and ambitions for the project, as well as the big issues that keep CEOs up at night. The Catalyst started day 2 with speeches by Paul Pullman and Robert Swanell.
Anyway, you had a great dinner yesterday night, and welcome here. I think it's incredibly important what you're doing, especially the Leadership Vanguard. For me, it's the most important part. It's actually the most important part that we can do.
Then we shifted venue to the Tate Britain, where the Catalysts were introduced to beacons and pathfinders in the Grand Saloon and seated around the Leadership Vanguard triangle, showing the 3 axes a new growth model must be developed along. Xynteo's Cole Paulson introduced us to the Age of Dilemmas, explaining how the search for profit and extreme efficiencies has led us into a landscape of wicked problems. He told us that Tate was built with bricks from the abandoned Panopticon prison project, where a few guards could monitor many prisoners, and liken it to how the few leaders in today's broken growth model can observe the many work from high on up in their watchtowers, detached from the problems we face down below. We listened to David Bodanis, futurist and author, explaining his theory of mid-level abstractions, that perfectly balanced level of expectations and goal setting in between too detailed and too abstract that lets great leaders focus their efforts for maximum effect and team cohesion. He was followed by retired Lieutenant General Graham Lamb, who shared some of his own powerful experiences and his principle of how you spend 1/3 of your time on your tasks, 1/3 on your team, and 1/3 on reflecting, and how the last part is often ignored in today's overload of data. Remy Eriksson of DNVGL, the inaugural sponsor of the program, presented his motivation for getting behind the Vanguard, how he sees a need for a different kind of leadership going forward. He also challenged us on the perception of the perfect leader. After a great lunch and a walk through the impressive halls of the museum, we gathered back in the Grand Saloon and asked everyone to reflect on what their goals would be for the project, and then to fill them out on what we call a pivot card. Then we gave the floor to Bob Thurman, professor of Indo-Tibetan Buddhist Studies at Columbia University, to engage in discussion with General Lamb about what makes a good leader and historical leaders they admire. It was an incredible moment of experience gained from inner peace versus armed conflict. Thurman talked at length about how Buddha in many ways was a businessman, and told a story about how he walked away from the royal family to seek the enlightenment he craved. General Lamb then presented his examples, T.E. Lawrence, Lord Nelson, and Ferdinand de Lesseps, the former French consul to Cairo. He is credited with building the Suez Canal and then failing to build the Panama Canal using the same tools. The leadership lesson Lamb pointed out was that what works in one place does not necessarily work in another. The yin-yang relationship between their examples, with both common and disparate traits, as well as the conversation between them, was both mesmerizing and entertaining. There are many memorable quotes, such as Lamb's, "If you have a wicked problem, walk away from it to get perspective," and Thurman's, "You only begin to change when you realize that you are not what you think you are." Sean Gregory, Senior VP of Woodside, told us that his motivation for joining the program was the opportunity for the like-minded to collaborate. Before Xynteo CEO Oswald Bjelland shared the stories behind his 3 key leadership lessons: to always work really hard, to always balance how much you give and receive, and since information reveals itself slowly and only one bit at a time, you should never be forced to making a decision too quickly. This part of the session ended with Bob Thurman taking us on a 10-minute meditation exercise to clear our heads. And then we dived into our 3 themes: redefining value, systems thinking, collaboration and resilience, and communication in the age of radical visibility. The Catalysts were divided into the 3 groups, and aided by pathfinders and beacons, they spent time at each station discussing their thoughts on the theme and how it relates to their image of future leadership. The group exploring how to redefine value quickly realized that they first have to understand how we define value today. Is financial gains the only measure, or are there already others in use? The systems thinking group discussed how to define wicked problems and how to initiate a collaborative project. Who takes that crucial first step? The communications group discussed the difference between being right and being heard in today's democratized media, and how important it is to walk the talk because there are no longer any closets to hide your skeletons in. Afterwards, we all shared our thoughts in a plenary discussion with input from General Lamb, Bob Thurman, David Bodanis, and the other Beacons and Pathfinders. And after closing comments and sharing our first day impressions, we thanked all for their participation and moved on to a pleasant dinner. Now, as we move forward, transforming these takeaways into research plans for us to explore and work on throughout the next year, we will take with us this energy, dedication, curiosity, and the great conversations we had at this kickoff session.